What's up everyone? Alex here. Disco Elysium won numerous RPG of the Year awards when it was released in 2019. But despite its critical acclaim, console gamers were left in the dust wondering what all the fuss was about. 2 years later, Disco Elysium: The Final Cut finally arrives on consoles with the PS4 and PS5 versions released this week, with future releases planned for the Xbox platforms and Switch later this year. I've been keeping a watchful eye on this game since it was released years ago, and thanks to the folks at Zom who provided me with a PS5 version of the game, I want to talk about 5 things that I think you need to know before playing Disco Elysium: The Final Cut. Given that my channel's focus is mostly on JRPGs, Japanese and niche games, I will be approaching Disco Elysium from a unique perspective as a longtime fan of these games. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, then subscribe to the channel. With all that preamble out of the way, let's dive right in. Number 1. When Disco Elysium first came out, many critics praised it as a realization of how to implement pen and paper RPG dialogue mechanics into a video game. While this definition might pique the interest of fans of pen and paper RPGs, this doesn't mean a damn thing to folks like me who don't play those kinds of games. And for my fans who primarily play console RPGs, this means much, much less. Having played through several hours of Disco Elysium: The Final Cut, I found a better way to define what the game is all about that might actually appeal to you. Think of Disco Elysium as an RPG that mostly plays like a point-and-click adventure game, with a heavy emphasis on providing color and style through its writing, making it one of the most narratively rich stories you'll ever experience in games. Okay, that might be a bit too high praise given that I haven't finished the game yet, but that's how powerful the early parts of the game are. But if that's a bit too wordy, let me phrase it in a different way. Disco Elysium is like if someone took the dialogue mechanics from BioWare or Witcher games and made a whole RPG with it, with each character trait dictating how much richer the narrative and experience would be. Okay, well maybe that's not any shorter. But from what you can glean from these two statements, Disco Elysium: The Final Cut is a game for people who absolutely love rich narrative storytelling. And when you compare to what some of us are used to in the JRPG space, it's a welcome contrast to what we expect from an RPG. That being said, let's keep going. There's a lot more to unpack than just what the genre is. Number 2. A warning about the dialogue. It is very verbose and cavernous. The reason why I say that is because as a JRPG fan, it is extremely easy for us all to try and consume as much of an RPG as we possibly can. After all, we know by experience that, eventually, the dialogue of an RPG's characters usually dry up quickly after only a few lines. However, that is not always the case for Disco Elysium. Because the game prides itself in allowing you to be whoever you want to be, and letting you solve the game's mysteries however way you want, it will provide you with an incredible amount of choice and self-expression than what you're used to. In fact, depending on what kind of character you built at the start of the game, you might get some additional insight on some mundane things that you wouldn't otherwise notice had you put points in another part of your character's personality traits. A downside of this is that this can lead to some fairly extensive dialogue that might feel like it goes on forever and ever, outright killing the pace of the story. My advice? Only inquire about things you're absolutely interested in, and try to stop yourself from consuming as much of the game's dialogue for the sake of checking it off on your list of things to do. I found that when I did this, I felt that I was actually playing as the character on screen, imbuing my own impatience and wanting to advance through the game's mystery into my character. And sure enough, when I did that, it worked. Too well, in fact, that I enjoyed the game even more. Perhaps my only gripe is that the promise that Final Cut would make Disco Elysium a fully voice-acted game doesn't seem to be the case, at least on the PS5 version, as there are several characters that don't have their dialogue voiced either after the first few lines or none whatsoever. Number 3. There are no tutorials in the game. Wait, hold up, what? You heard that right. You're on your own. Thankfully, since you're watching this, and if you're intending on playing this on console, I can at least give you an idea of how to play the game. You control your character using the left stick. Simple enough. But in order to interact with objects around you, you use the right stick to highlight interactable objects. For some reason, the game allows you to highlight interactable objects outside of your immediate explorable space, which is a little frustrating. Pressing X or its equivalent button on the Xbox and Switch, while highlighting interactables, will have your character walk over to the object and check it out, when they want to. For some reason, this doesn't always function right away, so I found that I have to do the command a few times until the character actually goes and does the action. Pressing the square button or its equivalent on the other consoles brings up your character sheet, and pressing the triggers will tab through your current quests, equipment, and other menus. Eventually, you'll come across items that can restore your health and morale. Pressing left or right on the D-pad will restore health and morale respectively, and if any of these drops to 0, it's game over. While there is combat in Disco Elysium, you'll need to be more concerned about the capabilities of your character, which is why making dice roll-based choices can be really important to pay attention to in this game. From time to time, your personality will occasionally provide you with additional context and insight to a current situation. This can both be useful and detrimental, and you can find more info on this just by checking a traits info page in your character sheet. By the way, this is one way you can inject your own flavor into the game's narrative. All that said, my advice is to try and approach the situations you're in with an open mind and don't be afraid to experiment. The way the game is designed allows for a decent level of self-expression, which carries over to how you choose to solve the game's mysteries. It's also worth noting that the game's autosave is fairly generous, and in case you get cold feet on a decision you have to make, you can always save at any time. Number 4. As of the game's release, Disco Elysium has legibility issues depending on how far you sit away from your screen. I play my PS5 games on a 50-inch screen at about 10 feet away, so legibility is very important to me. That said, Disco Elysium has text that is just too small to read when you're sitting afar. The footage you're seeing on screen is a demonstration of what I see every time I play the game, and it's a significant enough problem in an otherwise incredibly rich and narrative experience. There's also some UI elements that just blend into the background, making it tough to sift through lists and lines of information. Thankfully, the main dialogue text can be adjusted, though I found that I had to set it to the largest size in order to make it comfortably legible. Number 5. The story is quite dark. Compared to the games I've featured recently on the channel, Disco Elysium's gritty look alone will let you know that it's definitely going to be a different kind of experience than those. That being said, there are moments of levity that can lighten up the mood on occasion, and much like a majority of the choices in the game, it's often up to you to do so. This again stresses what I said earlier about not wanting to pursue every single dialogue choice for the sake of marking them asked, as you are in complete control of the pace of the game. Perhaps the closest comparison I have with how the game is for me thus far is that it reminds me of the motif and feel of Hunter S. Thompson's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but in video game form. And depending on your choice of personalities at the start, you can probably make it so that the main character has similar insights and observations as the main character in said story. If it's not apparent yet, Disco Elysium's narrative is one of the best in games in recent memory. With the ability to infuse additional context by way of an RPG system that enhances what is essentially a more nuanced point-and-click adventure narrative, the kind of experience you'll have with Disco Elysium will be unlike anything you've played before. And while I'm still a wee bit early in the game, I already can't wait to see how my character will solve the case, and I'm looking forward to the many surprises yet in store. For the folks who have played Disco Elysium, I'd love to read any additional advice you can give me and our community when playing this game. And for folks who are curious about the game, post any questions you have of the game in the comments. And if you like this video, please let me know by leaving a like, a comment, then subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you online.